Hello, parents. Dan Snowberger, superintendent. I'm joined here by Cindy Conyu, our coordinator of literacy. This is our second episode in our series of explaining some of the new initiatives we have here in the district this year. We've talked about direct instruction. We've talked about our dyslexia therapy that we now have in place to support our students who are struggling to read. And so we want to talk a little about that today is our dyslexia initiative. Cindy, it is so great to have you in our
Thank
district.
you.
We're so lucky
Happy
to
to be here.
have you. So Cindy, you are a certified academic language therapist, and you're also able to train other certified. Tell us a little about and we call those CALTs too, for parents who always know that education has those acronyms,
Right.
CALT. Tell us a little about what type of training goes into a CALT.
So, a certified academic language therapist, or a CALT, undergoes 2 years of graduate level training, specifically in the science of reading, with an emphasis on understanding students with dyslexia and how to help students achieve reading success. So, it's the 2 years of graduate level programming. It's over 200 hours in the classroom. It's 700 hours of observed practicum. And then you have to take, over the course, you have to take 2 nationally certifying tests. So the first test makes you a practitioner, or a CALP. And then once you pass the second test, you become a CALT, a certified academic language therapist. And then you can go beyond that and become a qualified instructor, which allows you to train others. Practitioners and therapists.
So this summer you had the opportunity to train some of our staff, which we're really excited about. So we multiplied you
Yes.
for our district. So tell us a little about that experience. I think we had 4 staff members.
It was so exciting. We had 4 staff members who were absolutely loving this opportunity. And they went through a 3-week, very intensive course that studies first the science of reading. And it is a super intense, in-depth course because we cram it's basically 2 or 3 college courses crammed into a week and a half. So there's a lot of information that they're learning, a lot of detail, a lot about dyslexia, the science behind it, lots of research that we look into. So they come out of those 3 weeks knowing so much about the science of literacy, structured literacy. How do we proceed to help these students who don't learn the way the traditional education system teaches?
Great. And it was all day, because I think I saw you coming out of some of those sessions and everyone looked a little tired.
Oh, it is exhausting because it is, I always tell them it's like drinking from a fire hose. And I also tell them kiddingly, if you don't cry during this training program, you're not doing it right. You're not putting enough into it.
Wow.
Because it's that overwhelming. I mean, there is so much information coming at you.
But you're becoming an expert in understanding the concepts of literacy and how they're built in a child's brain to be able to decode and actually make sense of printed words.
So I would say the way the program works is they're learning all the science behind reading first, and then they're practicing it, and as they go through the year, they're seeing how that's applied. And so they have all that background knowledge that then as they're going through teaching their students, they're seeing that, oh, I see how that research is fitting in, and I see how that works. And so it's a very successful way of learning. And they will become, when they are done with these courses, they will become some of the top literacy experts in our state.
That's fantastic. So parents, we've talked a little about dyslexia, and some parents are like, so what's the big deal? The research shows that 1 in 5, some research says, they say 1 in 7 students have some form of dyslexia. Now, not every student with dyslexia needs drastically changed instruction. Some of them need maybe more refined practices, but there are students with dyslexia that are pretty severe, and those students really struggle with learning. Tell us a little more about how does dyslexia impact a student's learning?
So I think let me start with kind of the sad thing about education today, is we've known for about 40 or 50 years what these students need to be able to read. Yet our educational system across the nation is not teaching reading the way that we know scientifically it needs to be taught. So these students are trying to access information that's being presented to them in a way that their brains cannot make sense of.
Mhm.
And so what we do with Take Flight is we teach reading the way the science shows. And we, the research puts kids under fMRIs, and they can watch where their brain lights up, so they know what's working and what's moving the activity from the right side of the brain, which is usually where dyslexic reading is occurring. And with the therapy, we can move it over to the left side of the brain. And so a student with dyslexia just needs the right type of instruction. And I think the really sad thing is that if we taught every child to read the way we're teaching kids to read with Take Flight, we would truly have only about 5% of our kids that struggle to read.
And that's really our goal.
And that is our goal. That is what we will get there. We have to do baby steps and get there, but the goal is that we will teach reading to every single student the way every single student can access it.
And parents, we've talked about, 40% of kids in the United States can read at grade level. It's despicable. And while we outperform that a little bit, it's still, we're not where we need to be. And
Not
that's
at all.
what we're really excited about having these tools. And so this isn't the only training we've done. I know you've done some training as our coordinator of literacy with our teachers. Do you want to talk a little about some of that?
Yeah, so we just did a training today on the science of reading. We've done some trainings on assessments, making sure that we're gathering the right kind of data so that we can really see where our students are struggling. And I think the important thing, yes, we want to help students with dyslexia, but a student doesn't need a label for us to be able to help them. We want to help any student who has any type of deficiency, whether it's because they weren't exposed to the material or exposed to a way that they learn. But that's one of the things that we're doing with the science of reading. We went in depth because teachers need to understand how brains work when it comes to learning to read. And if we can do this for all students, when we see reading go up, we will see all the other subjects go up because it affects everything. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a societal issue too. I mean, we know that some states base the number of prison beds based on what their literacy rates are in elementary school.
Which is sad.
We know it costs our country billions of dollars a year for students or adults who can't read or read below level. So it's a changing their life, and it's important that we do that early.
I know one of the things you did for a couple of our schools is a dyslexia simulator experience, and parents, we're going to try to offer that as well for our community here during the year, is that chance for teachers to experience what it's like for a child who has dyslexia. I often think of the cartoon Peanuts, Charlie Brown, where you hear the teacher wah, 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 wah. And honestly, going through the dyslexia simulation, you really do realize that's exactly what a dyslexic student's hearing when you're teaching in the way that, unfortunately, public education's drifted to. They're not making sense of it. And so I'm excited about that. So just to debunk, kids with dyslexia can learn.
Oh, they can. They absolutely can learn. They just need instruction in the right way. And, we look at, I always tell my kids who are feeling down, because this is an emotional thing. And so students who are struggling to read often have very low self-esteem. And I always tell them, hey, you look at the general population, about 20% of students or people have dyslexia. But you look at the entrepreneurs, the people who are filthy rich, about 35% of them have dyslexia. Because there's nothing wrong with their brain. It's the education system. And I hate when people say that dyslexia is a disability. The educational system makes it disabling. And there is a distinct difference there.
When you look at some of the famous, brilliant Americans, Albert Einstein, I think, was dyslexic.
We suspect,
So the list of people who have dyslexia. So with dyslexia comes some other comorbidities, we call them, and that's dyscalculia.
Dyscalculia.
Thank you. I need some help from my literacy expert, sorry. And dysgraphia.
Right.
So you want to talk a little about what those two are?
Sure. So dyscalculia is basically the kind of math version of dyslexia. And very often it is, students may know numbers, but they don't know the two-ness of two. Like, what does two represent? It's a label, but they struggle with that concept behind the label, what two really means, or what does five really mean. And so it's just a, a learning difference in math. And we know we can, I'm not a math expert, but we know the science
Yeah.
to fix that. We know that if we start with concrete
Mm-hmm.
and then move to representational and move to abstract, those students can also learn math.
That's awesome. And then dysgraphia, or writing.
Dysgraphia,
Yep.
it presents in two different ways. We see dysgraphia that comes across as a motor, a fine motor skill where students are struggling to form letters. And then we also see it where students have ideas, but because there is a disruption, they struggle to get those ideas on paper. So you may ask them to answer a question and they can give you this wonderful long answer, but you ask them to write it and you will get a very scarce sentence.
Yep. Yep.
Because they have the brilliant thoughts, they just cannot get them out on paper.
And the good news, parents, is none of these are preventing a student from learning if we instruct in the right way.
In the right
and I
way.
think that's what's really critical, parents, is this isn't about excuses. This is about recognizing the challenges that are happening with our children in our classrooms and changing our practices, supporting our teachers in changing those practices so that we can do a better job in reaching more of our students. So I know all of our students have been engaged in the beginning of the year reading assessments, iReady, K through 8. And I know we're monitoring those because we want to see, you know, are there indicators? And I think iReady does have some indicators that allow us to see some red flags.
Yes, and we actually added to the diagnostic. And so K through 5, we have done the literacy tasks, which is a one-on-one assessment with a teacher or an adult. That gives us even better information that can really dig down to what kids need. And so
when we identify a student who may have some characteristics of dyslexia, what else are we doing?
Well, as many as we can fit into a take flight therapy, which is truly a therapy as opposed to an intervention. Right. I mean, it is a totally different level of help. We'll fit as many kids as we can in there. We have our interventionists that are being trained in the science of reading. So they will have a multisensory structured literacy approach to their instruction that they're giving students. And eventually we're going to work on the tier 1. Because if we can fix the tier 1, we could put people like me out of a job.
Yep, and that's what we're all working towards,
yeah,
right?
Put me out of a job.
Yep. Well, we don't want to put you out of a job. But, so it's important, parents, to know that in the coming weeks, you're going to receive a letter if your child is performing below grade level. And that's not to scare you. That's just to alert you, because what we have found is in the past, as we've collected this data, sometimes we've not necessarily reacted to it. And that's something we're changing as a system. So you will be notified, and please don't take that notification as alarms are going off, but more or less we want you to know that, hey, we've identified that your child might need some additional supports. What we have found early on, because this is so new, so we've have had some parents who have said, I don't want my child to get intervention. And I really want you to understand how important it is. We have now very structured interventions in place to support children who are functioning below grade level, that we can help them recover and get back to grade level. And that's so important that we take advantage of that. Every year that goes by and a child's continuing to, I call it, move forward like Swiss cheese with holes in their learning, the more challenging it's going to get for them as they reach high school. And high school is really not a learning to read, but a reading to learn scenario. Middle school is too, but luckily in middle school we have a lot more reading interventions as well this year. So just know, parents, that that's coming. Again, it's not an alarm. It's communicating with you so we can work together as we go through the rest of the year. I think it's also important to note we're not diagnosing dyslexia. No. Because we're not medical doctors. It is a medical diagnosis. We're diagnosing characteristics. Right. You want to talk a little about that?
Yeah. And I think it's important that we're looking for areas where students are struggling, and then we're addressing those areas. So whether or not a student has an official diagnosis or not, it's not going to change what we do. We're going to do what they need.
Right.
We don't need that piece of paper that gives a formal diagnosis, because we can recognize those characteristics, we can recognize those areas of deficiency, and we can address those directly. Right. And so it's more of a laser pointed approach rather than a shotgun approach
Right.
that we take.
Perfect. Perfect. So parents know when you get a letter, don't feel that you need to go get a diagnosis.
Yep.
We're going to treat the symptoms. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
treat the challenges that your child's having in reading. We're going to make sure that we close those gaps. We're going to communicate with you throughout the year as we work to close those gaps. And we really want to make sure, I will be very honest with you, our goal is that children not leave elementary school reading below grade level. Because again, when children go to middle school, when they begin accessing electives and they begin accessing all of the content that is opened up in the secondary level, children need to not have those reading difficulties that get in the way. And
Yeah.
so our goal this year is to make sure that certainly at the elementary level, children are caught up and that we close that gap, or at least we're on track to closing that gap. And so, we'll talk with you during the year if we feel like your child is struggling to get there and what we can do together to try to make sure that they get there. We may have some summer programs next summer for students who still need some additional support. So there's a lot still ahead. But most importantly, I hope what you're hearing is we've added a lot of tools in the toolbox here in Elizabeth School District, and Cindy has been just a great partner in doing so, and we're so fortunate to have her. So again, any closing words, anything
Well,
you
I
want
just want
parents
to
to know?
throw in that we're also doing this at the middle school.
Yes.
We have 2 CALTs at the middle school, a CALT in training and a CALT. And I'm in there doing JET training, which is the same as Take Flight, but it's condensed to a year. It's a little faster pace.
Fantastic.
So we have students at the middle school that are also getting therapy.
Fantastic. And that's important to know. Again, we know we have children who did leave elementary school not reading on grade level, and we're not dismissing that. We're trying to make sure that we close that gap before they move on to the high school. Yep. So again, parents, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Certainly, if it's a question about literacy, I'm certainly happy to get with Cindy and make sure we get an answer back to you. Again, this series is really about trying to highlight the changes that are happening here in Elizabeth School District. We're so fortunate to have resources and quality people like Cindy to help us in supporting, shifting our system and supporting our great teachers who really come to work every day wanting to do amazing things, and giving them the tools now to address some areas that we know that as a district we've not always been as efficient as we need to be. So again, look for our last episode in this series, which will kind of hopefully show you what's happening in our classrooms, actually share some of those actual clips of things that are going on to address some of the things you saw with Zach Rochelle in our last video, the direct explicit instruction, and we'll probably highlight some of our Take Flight groups. Parents, be sure to follow our website, elizabethschooldistrict.org, and all of our social media channels for more information like this that we're constantly pushing out for you. Thank you.